We're far, far away from the times of the 80s and 90s where it felt like programming a game was more of a hobby than a job. Sure, this was back in the era of cartridges where games could be coded in record time and put out for the public to snack on, but in that time we've gone from cartridges to discs to digital licenses. Systems were primitive and lacking in technology compared to what we have today, meaning coding was more about passion and raw development power than following the words and vision of a project lead. We are far past the era of yesteryear though, as games today are meticulously planned and thought out. A simple title can take around a year of planning and programming, and I don't need to tell you how long fans have been waiting for Grand Theft Auto 6. All of this planning eats up valuable time and effort, and with games only becoming more and more expensive to make, it's gone to the point where some franchises have long since abandoned the yearly release format. Need for Speed is one of these titles. Need for Speed had released a game every single year for 16 straight years, even releasing multiple titles in the span of a few months. After the polarizing Need for Speed Rivals released in 2013, EA decided to pull the plug on the yearly release format and give the developers 2 years to create the next game. Of course, barring any shifting around of the development teams, Need for Speed for the most part have stuck to this 2-year release schedule, which has brought back the gameplay and story quality that we once loved. This wasn't always the case, however, and it was actually during the height of EA's yearly releases of Need for Speed that Black Box Games cooked up what is widely considered the greatest title in the game's history.
Suspect is in a silver BMW.
Units, all units, repeat, all units, increase pursuit to condition 4.
Unit down, repeat, a unit is down, send more cover.
In the early 2000s, the Need for Speed franchise had firmly established itself as the leading name in the racing game genre, and this was due to titles like Need for Speed Underground and Underground 2. These were the first 2 games that immediately followed the series' cosmetic makeover. Every Need for Speed title pre-Hot Pursuit 2 featured supercars on winding roads, mountains, and backcountry driving, so it only made sense to introduce change before the brand got stale. The result of that was Need for Speed Underground in 2003. This game and Underground 2 had immersed players in the vibrant world of tuner car culture and the nocturnal street racing scene, as it was the trend around the world at the time thanks to films such as The Fast and the Furious. Vehicles in this game were customizable on so many levels, and this was a big change from the previous titles where the paint color was the extent of your customizability. The game also improved with the raw racing action, featuring cinematic camera cuts for jumps and crashes, as well as overall improvements to the audio and visual quality. We didn't quite have free roam capabilities just yet. Every race took place in different landmarks of the fictional Olympic City, and with its 111 events, the game gets stale and repetitive very quickly. Additionally, the game lacked police, even if there were files buried in the demos of both games which hinted at their presence. This paved the way for the team at EA Black Box to include them in their next game. Ever since the first title in 1994, Need for Speed had developed a new game to release every single year with no breaks in between. In a perfect world, this would be a sustainable release schedule, but we don't live in a perfect world. While each game built upon the last, adding new features and making improvements, the process in which these games were made was constantly changing, with EA CEO at the time, John Riccitiello, even admitting as such, stating that the development group was being worked to the bone, which meant that the door for constant innovation and improvement wasn't always left wide open. One of the most common misconceptions about this game is that it was the first storyboarding conceptualized around the time that Underground 2 released, or even a little bit earlier. This was not the case. Developers had quite frankly better ideas than that of EA at the time. During development of the first Underground title, 2 titles had been in the works. The first was Need for Speed Most Wanted, and the second was Need for Speed Repo Man. Artwork exists online confirming the game's existence, but another title entered the fray. Sifting through the Underground 2 demo files, one piece of art came up that hinted at a third concept title. The file name was as follows: Al Kang HP3 Female Cops 9E copy.jpg, signifying that this was originally going to be Hot Pursuit 3. Now, we did technically get Hot Pursuit 3 as the Criterion reboot title would qualify as the third entry in the series, but this was the first time a genuine third installment was even heard of being developed at the time. The working theory that the community came up with would be what Call of Duty does with its Modern Warfare and Black Ops titles: alternate each title between a focus on cops and chases and a focus on tuner culture and full-scale customization. This theory hits a roadblock when you consider how well the Underground titles sold. Immediately going and making a third Hot Pursuit game instead of capitalizing on the momentum that Underground 1 and 2 had generated would be a stupid idea and no doubt hurt the sales of future titles. Underground 1 would set the basis for future titles because of development decisions that just couldn't fit in the first game. A full city was built and planned for the first game but cut at the last minute. This free roamability was never seen in the series before this and would become the selling point of the second Underground title. The other 40 to 50% of the development team not working on Underground 2 were developing the next cop-focused Need for Speed, which would later evolve into Most Wanted. This gameplay trailer, released later in 2004, shows that the map showcased was relatively close to what we would see in the final game, albeit with a few changes to road layouts and things like that. It also shows a dirty, rundown city, the antithesis of what we would come to see in the Underground titles. The pieces started falling into place, though, in the latter half of 2004, with Black Box really hammering home this new gritty look for the series, even down to the cover art. By the time E3 rolled around, fans could tell this wasn't a sequel to Underground. The trailer showcased the first glimpses of the iconic BMW M3 GTR as it rolled onto the streets of Rockport for the first time. The glamorous streets of Bayview were gone, replaced with the heavily weathered and dirty Rockport City, which is a much better scenery choice to accommodate the return of police in Need for Speed. Most Wanted would combine the police of Hot Pursuit with the customization of the Underground titles to make one kick-ass Need for Speed game. On November 11, 2005, Most Wanted would release to critical acclaim. Fans ate this game up and still to this day clamor for a remaster. A significant departure from previous installments was the emphasis on a structured narrative. The developers introduced a compelling storyline centered around the player's quest to become the most notorious street racer in Rockport. Central to this narrative was the Blacklist, a roster of 15 elite racers that players had to defeat sequentially to climb the ranks. The narrative depth was further enhanced by the inclusion of live-action cutscenes, a bold move that added a cinematic flair to the game. Actors were cast to portray certain characters, including the main antagonist, Razor, played by Derek Hamilton, and the main ally, Mia, played by Josie Marin. These characters provided motivation and context, being more fleshed out than the animated characters of the Underground series. With the development process discussed, let's talk about specifics, starting with map design. Creating an immersive open-world environment was paramount to the game's design. It was crucial for Black Box to make sure Rockport was meticulously crafted to avoid the burnout of Underground 1. As a result, Rockport would be designed to offer diverse locales, from industrial zones and bustling downtown areas to serene coastal highways and forested areas. This variety ensured that races and pursuits remained fresh and challenging, requiring players to adapt their strategies based on the terrain. The city's layout was also designed with exploration in mind. Players were encouraged to go and find the hidden shortcuts and pursuit breakers to better help them when escaping what is widely considered the most difficult and challenging police in the history of Need for Speed. Additionally, the varied traffic patterns programmed into the game contributed to a living, breathing world that reacted to the player's actions. Taxis would cruise the city in highway areas, but 18-wheelers hauling cargo would remain highway-bound, with the player being able to smash into them to drop their cargo onto the police. These were dubbed dynamic pursuit breakers and would be refeatured in Need for Speed Carbon. An often underappreciated aspect of Most Wanted is its eclectic soundtrack, which played a pivotal role in setting the game's tone and also shaping my music taste personally. The Underground games would feature genres such as nu metal and Atlanta hip-hop, but Most Wanted would feature rock and metal bands like Disturbed and Bullet for My Valentine, as well as hip-hop groups like Styles of Beyond. One artist in particular shaped my taste for rock and metal, Clayton from Cell Dweller. Most Wanted's music selection was curated to match the intensity of high-speed races and heart-pounding pursuits, and this auditory backdrop not only enhanced the experience, but it also introduced players to a diverse array of music genres. You rarely see this in the newer games. Established artists haven't been featured nearly as much, resulting in many players turning the music slider off and playing whatever's on their Spotify playlists, with me in particular liking to put on the soundtrack to Carbon while I play Need for Speed Unbound. The success of a racing game is determined by many features, but control is one of the biggest, and Most Wanted has that in spades. Hitting cars in the older games felt like driving into a brick wall, whereas in Most Wanted they feel more impactful. The cars don't fly 5 miles down the road in an unrealistic manner no matter how hard or gently you hit them, and that weight is also noticeably felt in the steering and overall handling of the game. The cars had more weight and sway in Hot Pursuit 2, which some would argue isn't needed in a racer such as Need for Speed. In Most Wanted, the car's handling and weight rides a fine line between being light enough to take turns without jamming the brakes, but also heavy enough to make impacts with walls feel like you're actually behind the wheel as it's happening. While I play on PC now, Need for Speed is still a console-oriented game, feeling smooth and fluid to play on a controller. Most Wanted on controller feels very nice at any speed. You get that flow state mentality and start to become one with the car, and that's completely different from its mid-2000s rival, Midnight Club. Briefly touching on the series for a minute to help this comparison, Rockstar's Street Racing series began in the early 2000s as an alternative to Need for Speed's tuner-oriented titles. The series' later entries would feature licensed cars in real-world locations, but no matter what entry you choose, the game still features some of the craziest handling ever seen in a racer. It's almost as if the developers slathered every road in Midnight Club with gallons of baby Yeah, that's not making the video. No, you know what? No, I'm leaving that in. Fuck it. Regardless, the handling in Midnight Club, while rage-inducing, is also incredibly rewarding once you're able to master it. And while Midnight Club and Most Wanted share no similarities in terms of gameplay mechanics, they share the same chaotic vibes and uncertainty, because rarely is there a moment in Most Wanted where you're comfortably in the lead. This is due to the game having some of the most egregious rubber banding that has ever been seen in a racing game. While some games allow you to scale the difficulty of the AI, Most Wanted gives you total hell to pay no matter how hard or easy it is. You can be bobbing and weaving your way through Rosewood's tight corners 15 seconds ahead of the pack, but make one mistake and they'll rocket past you. And this goes both ways too. A fully modified Lancer could be gapped by an unmodded GTI in this game. And this is a problem when you take into account how slow Most Wanted starts off, as you're given a pitiful selection of economy cars against student drivers deathly scared to go even a mile an hour over the speed limit. If racing against said slow AI is a problem for you, try your hand at toll booth events, because while overly long and incredibly tedious, these are good fun if you like time trials. 90% of the time, however, the clock is not your enemy, as even the most mundane vehicle can finish a toll booth event with 15 seconds to spare. A mode making its return from Underground, drag racing has been overhauled, but is even more infuriating than in the previous title. In the former titles, drag racing put you on a straight-line course against AI opponents. You'd be responsible for now shifting gears, hitting that perfect RPM. Shift too early, your opponents fly by. Forget to shift and your engine turns into a Hyundai. You aren't bound to the lane that the hand of God places you on before the race, as moving your analog stick left or right changes lanes, and you'll need it to dodge the many hazards on the road. Where Most Wanted fails to deliver a good drag racing experience, however, is in the design of the courses. They're on the same roads as normal circuit races, meaning the courses have the same exact turns and now double the traffic, resulting in you needing to make multiple lane changes to make sure you don't clip a car and total your ride. This in turn means you'll more than likely spend more time than you bargained for trying to win with you needing to restart the race so many times, and that's a problem when you realize how long this game really is. I briefly touched on this next segment earlier, but now I get to go more in depth. This game is what separated the true grinders from the casual gamers. At the core of Most Wanted's single-player experience was the Blacklist. Each of the 15 members had a unique personality, preferred vehicle, and racing style. Defeating a Blacklist member was a multifaceted reward. Players not only advanced in rank, but also had the opportunity to acquire the rival's customized car and unique performance upgrades through boss cards, adding a tangible sense of progression and achievement to the game. These would once again refeature Need for Speed Carbon. The grind to the top mentality was back, and the best part about these milestones was there were way more than what was required to challenge a racer, so you had plenty of choice and were encouraged to go back and complete all of the races and milestones you initially passed on once you completed the game. But after exhausting so much to actually complete the story, would you really want to clean up the rest of the events? This is the problem with the progression of the game, the repetitive and tedious nature of the events. The routine for challenging a Blacklist racer involves completing the required number of events, flying past speed traps, and engaging in long and tiring police pursuits until you've completed your time, damage, or bounty milestones that allows you to challenge the specific racer. The issue is these milestones never deviate from the first few you complete, they just get harder in requirement. Early on in the game, you're given 5 minutes to escape the police. Towards the end, you do it in less than 2. The only issue is these requirements don't scale with player skill, which means being quick to complete these milestones adds to the tediousness, as these same bland and boring tasks done in the first 2 hours repeat after the following 6. This makes coming back to the game hard to do. Before playing this game for the video, I hadn't touched it since 2020. At first, I'd completely forgotten how repetitive this game got, and even asked myself why I even bothered continuing on. However, that all changed once I started doing the pursuit milestones. One of the most lauded features of Most Wanted was its dynamic police pursuit system. The police felt like they were racing alongside you in Hot Pursuit 2. In Most Wanted, they're here to destroy you. During chases, the usual rock and hip-hop music is swapped out for an all-new dramatic score by Paul Linford, instilling even more fear into the player. The game introduced a heat level mechanic where the intensity and tactics of the police escalated based on the player's actions. Starting out with basic patrol cars, the police response could escalate to include SUVs, spike strips, roadblocks, and even federal agents in high-performance vehicles. This level of evolution and escalation was completely absent in Hot Pursuit 2. The AI driving the police behavior was notably advanced for its time, with officers coordinating tactics to box in or ram the player's car, which created a thrilling and unpredictable challenge. Evading these pursuits required not only driving skill but also strategic use of the environment, such as triggering pursuit breakers to hinder the police. The process of being stopped by police is completely different in this game. In Hot Pursuit 2, you're let go seemingly scot-free. When you're busted in Most Wanted, you lose everything. There's no worse feeling than being 20 minutes into a Heat Level 5 chase, looking to lose the police now that you've finished your milestones, only to see the police form a rolling roadblock directly in front of a Rhino roadblock, leading you to being busted. Oh, and if you thought you could get away by just resetting, try again. The developers programmed the busted meter to immediately jump all the way to the red for players who try to get cheeky with the reset button. Of course, there's still room for critique. Heat levels 1 and 2 don't hold a candle to 3 and above, making early game pursuits feel more like a hassle than a concern. Police also aren't indicated on the minimap during cooldown like in Need for Speed Carbon. The only indicator in this game is the radar blips on your rearview mirror. This results in the player frantically trying to find a wandering police car to re-engage the pursuit if they accidentally enter cooldown. Additional frustration is felt with the backup timer. Once you've gotten rid of all but a few pursuing vehicles, the officers will call for backup, triggering a timer. Once the timer runs out, a new wave of police show up. Simple, right? Well, you better hope you don't take out that last pursuing car before backup arrives, because if you enter cooldown, the timer resets. Issues like these still don't take away from the great experience that the police add to this game, however. With the abundance of police in this game, the fact that heat generates quickly and police can interfere in races, you'll want 2 separate cars, one for pursuits and one for races. Most Wanted features a robust lineup of licensed vehicles, ranging from tuners and muscles to exotics. Each car class offered distinct handling characteristics, allowing players to choose a vehicle that matched their driving style. You're also able to utilize performance tuning from the pause menu to fine-tune the handling to your preference. While the customization isn't quite as deep as that of Underground 2, you're still able to change a lot visually. Instead, Most Wanted focused on performance enhancements. Players could upgrade engines, transmissions, suspensions, and more to improve their car's capabilities. Body kits, spoilers, and paint jobs were all plentiful, though the emphasis was more on function than form. The customization helps to deter police, as making big changes to the design of the car can drop its heat level, and this is a very useful feature if you don't want to switch to another car and use that one until the heat on your main ride goes away. In a move that hasn't been done in the series before, Most Wanted utilized live-action footage blended with CGI elements to enhance the game's story and narrative. Actors were green-screened into the in-game city, with this approach adding a tangible, relatable aspect to the characters and story. Many of the Blacklist members made it on-screen, but they didn't get nearly as much screen time as some of the others. Notable cast members included Josie Marin as Mia Townsend. She was the one in the RX-8 who raced against you in the opening cutscene, acting as the player's confidant and guide, whose true intentions unfold as the story progresses. Next up is Dean McKenzie as Sergeant Cross. He was the relentless law enforcer in the Corvette determined to bring down illegal street racers. Next is Simone Bailey as Cross's unnamed partner. She played Cross's partner in crime throughout the game's runtime, acting as kind of the strong, silent type. And lastly is Derek Hamilton as Razor Callahan, the primary antagonist whose actions during the prologue set the player's journey into motion. All of the people who contributed to the cutscenes of this game did a fantastic job. Their performances added depth to the game's narrative, making victories more satisfying and rivalries more personal. Upon its release in November 2005, Need for Speed Most Wanted received widespread acclaim that still stands today. Critics praised its engaging storyline, innovative police pursuit mechanics, and the seamless integration of live-action sequences. The game's open-world design was also highlighted as a significant strength. Commercially, Most Wanted was a success, selling 15 million confirmed copies, topping sales charts and earning several awards, including the VGX Award for Best Driving Game. Its appeal spanned both casual gamers and hardcore racing fans, solidifying its place in gaming history. This game was considered the peak of what many people dub Need for Speed's golden era, which is the period from Hot Pursuit 2 to Need for Speed Carbon. While all of the games in this era sold very well, none of them would match just how much Most Wanted sold. Carbon is seen as the last great Need for Speed game, with subsequent titles not hitting the mark in the way Most Wanted did. One of the main reasons why Most Wanted sold so much is because it was available for literally every single platform at the time. The game had a simultaneous launch on November 11th of 2005, releasing on GameCube, PlayStation 2, PC, Xbox, Xbox 360, Game Boy Advance, and Nintendo DS. Each of these platforms had their own technical hurdles, resulting in the handheld versions being a lot like the Stories versions of the Grand Theft Auto games. The DS version of Need for Speed Most Wanted is widely considered the weakest entry for many reasons. Casey, a notable creator when it comes to weird ports and things like that, has covered this game on a much deeper level than I ever could, so I will link her video up in the cards now if you wish to watch for yourself. The Xbox 360 entry is the strongest one, being enhanced for the new hardware. Side-by-side comparisons show higher resolution on the cars and textures, and that's simply because of all the other platforms being much older than the new Xbox 360 at the time. 2 decades later, Most Wanted remains a beloved title. The game's enduring popularity is a testament to its innovative design and the memorable experiences it provided to players worldwide. Lots of people who played this game had no interest in cars before, and are now out building their dream rides and recreating them to be like the ones they drove in-game. That mindset extends outside of Most Wanted too. The Mitsubishi Evolution 9MR is my all-time favorite dream car because of Need for Speed Carbon, and I hope to one day own that car and make videos about it. The best part about gaming is that while we all play the exact same game, our narratives and personal experiences are rarely the same. Conversations over games like this can last forever, simply because we all share different viewpoints and different ways we got into the game and car culture in general. This game has mods aplenty for PC, adding different cars and upscaling the graphics to simulate what a remaster could potentially look like if we ever got one, minus all of the pesky microtransactions that would no doubt be included in a remaster, of course. But despite all that, I still find myself going out of my way to play Most Wanted, and not because of the nostalgia, but because of a genuine love and passion for the game, and I'm sure the same can be said for a lot of you watching this video. No matter what you think, you can't deny that this game was, and still is, Need for Speed's magnum opus, even 20 years later.